Gentlemen, welcome to Destiny Education Hangin with the Fellas podcast with your host, Toina.
Hello, gentlemen, and welcome to Hangin with the Fellas podcast. As always, I'm super excited to be here with you. Today, we're going to be talking about setting up your marriage for success. You know, too many of you are not really familiar with how God set up marriage. And so you're trying to merge worldly thought processes with godly understanding. And the moment we try to mix anything worldly with what the Father is doing for us is a moment when we begin to fail. And so today, I really want to walk you through how to set up your marriage so that you always find success. Because I know it's very hard when you haven't yet lived it to think that always consistently having success in a marriage is an impossible task. But I'm here to tell you, it is not. And the reason that it's not is because marriage is designed to always be successful. Just as I've shared with you that your brain is always designed to be a success, whether you program it for failure or you program it for success, it's always going to successfully give you what you program it to do. It's the same with marriage. Marriage will always successfully bring you whatever you program it to bring you. You ready? Let's get started. We're going to come first out of Proverbs, chapter 18, verse 22. And it's a simple verse that says, "He who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord." We often think that marriage is a man-made construct. It is not. Let me tell you what the man-made portion of it is. The big party where the bride and groom spend tens of thousands of dollars to entertain a whole bunch of people that they really don't like or really want at their wedding. I always think it's funny, you know, people start these wedding invitation lists and they end up 300 people long. But you don't talk to these 300 people on a consistent, regular basis. So why are you bringing them to the most intimate, celebrated portion of your life? People are who they are, but that is not what constitutes marriage. You can actually, according to the Bible, become married by consummation, through consummation. And if we look back in Genesis, when Abraham sent his servant out to find a wife for Isaac, he went into the tent where she was. They consummated the relationship, and that was how they wed. There wasn't a such thing as a big party. That's the man-made construct of marriage. That's what it was designed for. Women were not originally given to join kingdoms together. It was not uncommon that she would be not very well to do. And as a result of her marriage, the wealthier family, which is usually who the husband came from, would pay some form of a dowry, as we call it today, to her parents so that they, who were losing their daughter, had some form of compensation and thank you, gratitude for raising someone who was worthy of marriage. It was always a grateful gratitude gift. It was not a purchase of a female, which is oftentimes how people choose to look at it. That's not at all what it was. So why is there a blessing in marriage? Listen, Ecclesiastes gives you the answer to that. Solomon tells you two are better than one because they have a good reward for their labor. How can you warm yourself if you're one by yourself? But if two are together, they can keep each other warm. There is just an inherent beauty in marriage. Number one, it gives you the physical, right, that everybody loves, the opportunity for constant consummation or frequent consummation. However, if you choose to have infrequent, well, that's on you. I'm going to let you live with that one. You can consummate the relationship on a regular basis. Number two, you have a friend, a genuine friend, if you build it that way. Otherwise, what you have is an interaction. a transaction. So if you don't like transactional living, then stop building your life in a way that it is actually transactional and not an interwoven beauty that it's designed to be. Because this woman is to be your best friend through life. When you see her, you should be happy to see her, even when you're mad at her, and even when she's mad at you. So, what is the purpose of marriage? What is God's purpose for marriage? Let's get started. Without question, it is a lifelong partnership from beginning to end. And to build that lifelong partnership, there are certain things that you have to do. You have to be honest. And I'm going to say that so many times in this episode. You have to be honest, because there are too many of you running around out there lying to your spouses and then wondering why everything blows up in your face. The worst thing you can do is take away a person's right to make a decision, to choose. Women are not built in a way that requires you to lie to them. Trust and believe if you tell them the truth, many of them will walk that path with you. That lifelong partnership exists so that you have someone to work with. They have to be able to deal with whatever you throw at them. And so what happens is because you're so afraid of losing this person, you lie to them. And ultimately, as a result of that fabrication, guess what happens? You lose them. They're not there. They don't want to walk with you. They don't want to go through. Now you're dealing with a woman who has no love for you, who's constantly frustrated with how you do things. You have just set up your own hell, and you've got no one to blame but yourself. Do not lie to your spouse. Tell them the truth always. And ironically, the more you tell them the truth, the stronger the bond will grow to be between the two of you. For some of you, there may have been so many lies that it's too late. That's always a possibility. Give it time. People heal. Depending on how bad the lie was, give it time. Your spouse, your partner, is going to be the one who helps you build your kingdom. She's going to be the one who helps to take it from a vision and something that is in the air to something that is solid and concrete on the ground. Something that the world can see and live from. Those are the things that a lifelong partnership are supposed to bring. I want you to remember that. Because if that's not what you're seeing, you have to fix how it's going. Let's move on to the next. We often discount how important it is that we have a witness to the things that happen in our lives. You know, if I come and tell you all the things that God has done in my life, you wouldn't believe me. But if somebody else, like my spouse, comes and says, let me tell you some of the crazy things I have seen happen to her that I didn't even know God did for people. It changes how you hear what's being said, what's being shared. And it's not just me, it's anyone that you talk to. Everybody always wants to, it feels like everybody wants to make themselves sound holier than thou and bigger than they are. But when their spouse has actually seen it, you sit back and you go, wow, I didn't know God did things like that. And no two stories are the same. That's what is so phenomenal about God, is that what he does for me, he doesn't do for other people. What he does for other people, he doesn't need to do for me. So for example, there will never come a time that God needs to save me from a shark. You want to know why? Because I'm not taking my butt into the ocean. There is no reason for me to be in the oceanic ecosystem. I am not interested in being shark food. As much as I would love to swim with dolphins, I will do that when the next world comes, because then I don't have to worry about sharks eating me. But on this side of no, where dolphins are, sharks are. Otherwise, I wouldn't need dolphins right there. The dolphin's job is to save me from the shark, but I would prefer not to put the dolphin in harm's way. So I will just stay out of the ocean and let them do what they do, right? But on the other side of that, God may never ever change the direction of water so that a plastic bottle can float to you in the middle of a rushing river because he needs to prove a point. All of us get to see who God is in a way that speaks to us, that addresses us, that helps us understand who he is. And whenever you say that, there are a number of people out there who like to say, oh, God will never do anything that's against his word. When is God changing the direction of water against his word? He parted the Red Sea. I want you to understand that. Always there's going to be somebody who wants to come and take away your thunder, who wants to devalue something that God has done for you. You got to let that stuff go. Not everybody gets to be witness, but I want to tell you what that shows you. That is the evidence of why Jesus said, I could do no miracles because of their lack of belief. You see, sometimes when people hear about those miracles that God did between you and your spouse, they become jealous. And when that happens, they don't want to believe the miracle and they speak against it. Let them be who they are, because in them putting down your miracle, it will bring other people to you. It's amazing how God manages to always use haters to elevate us. And I want you to always hang in there with that and to always remember that, because that's how phenomenal God and his decisions really can be. You will be with your spouse more than anyone else in the world. I want you to remember that, because it's vitally important that you remember you have a lifetime of exploration with this person. If you will walk into your marriage with that understanding and that belief, it changes your life, because you stop thinking about it from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, day in and day out. You stop doing that. You go, okay, we've been here, here, and here. Where else do we want to go? What do we want to travel? Hey, there's a new restaurant. Let's go. If you don't have that with your spouse, you don't have anything. And let me tell you something else. You see, oftentimes, y'all, you forget something. It's never the big things that have the greatest value. I want to tell you a story. There was a restaurant I really wanted to try out, and it was coming. And I had asked someone to go with me. And our plan was that before it opened, we were going to go opening night. And he didn't show. That was ultimately the thing that separated any possibility of anything becoming friendship, relationship, anything. If you can't honor my request to go to a restaurant when they first open, what's there to talk about? Why would we plan to go to Australia when we can't even go to Tahoe Joe's? Are you serious right now? You see, it's the little things that matter. It's listening to when she talks and says, oh, this is happening or this is happening. I'd like to go see that. And then all of a sudden, one day you show up with tickets after telling her, oh, it's been such a hard day. I'm so tired. Because I want you to understand that's exactly what she hears. And so she thinks that you guys are not going to go. And you show up with these tickets. And next thing you know, you all are there. And you will see the biggest, brightest smile come across her face. Because now she understands that you know how important this was to her. And that you had that value for what she had to say. Oh, it speaks volumes to her. It speaks volumes. And I want you to understand that. Those volumes are what change her life and make her fall deeper and deeper in love with you every single time you do it. Now, be careful. You got to use that sparingly, because if you do it too often, she's going to instantly assume that that means you're playing the game, and just like the last time and the last 5 times, you're going to show up and you guys are actually going to go. And then you surprise her by not going, and now she's angry because she's like, what are you talking about? Well, this is how you do it all the time. Why are you changing now? She had an expectation. And so I don't tend to look at people having expectations as a problem. I believe wholeheartedly, and the Bible is very clear that we are supposed to have expectations. So this whole thought in the world about, oh, you shouldn't expect anything, I don't buy that, because it doesn't line up with the word. If it doesn't line up with the word, then it's garbage, right? If you set an expectation and then she lives by that expectation, and now you're mad because she had an expectation, you set that up. That's your fault. Deal with it. Quit doing that stuff. And understand this. It can be an expectation for good. It can also be an expectation for bad. So here's the deal. Let me give you an example of the expectation of bad. I have a couple that I'm working with right now. And the woman is just done with this man. She's done. Because what he has consistently shown her is that he's weak and he does not have the ability to stand. And so when she looks at him, when he talks, here's what she hears. Wah, 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 wah. Y'all remember Charlie Brown? If not, Google it. No, Google it. Go on YouTube and pull up Charlie Brown. Wah, 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 wah. You'll hear it. That's what the teacher always did. That's how she sounded. And that's what this woman hears when this man talks. Why? Because he says he's going to do a whole lot of things that don't ever come to pass. He does not consistently take a project from beginning to end. And when he is in the middle of something, because he will not communicate what he needs, he leaves it in a position for her to guess. And he's an alcoholic. And so what happens? He gets filled with liquid courage. And who does he attack? He attacks her. And so what ends up happening is that now she don't care. She's like, listen, anytime you say you going to do something, I know you ain't going to do it. The problem with that way of doing things, okay, is that the rebound from that, when it crosses a certain threshold, yeah, it's not good. In fact, more times than not, it doesn't rebound and it can't be saved. And I need you to understand that, because it can always be worse. But when a person has lost complete and total trust in anything you say, they don't often turn a corner to suddenly believe you. It can be done, but that's a long, long journey. And you got to understand something. Your women are sharp. They know you. They study you. And they know how long a change lasts in you. In the case of the man and woman I was just giving you, it's 2 weeks. He'll make a proclamation, and 2 weeks later, he's right back to the same thing again. So she doesn't have anything, because she already knows in 2 weeks he'll be back where he is. If he makes it 4 weeks, she goes, okay, so he doubled the time. Great. But that's not a success in her mind, because it's too far gone. And I just want you to understand that that's how you destroy oftentimes your relationships, is when you build up that expectation of failure. That's how they see you. But it's the expectation that you built. Okay? Let's go to number 3. You weren't put here to live small. You were put here to do amazing things. The reason that many of you are not accomplishing the amazing things to the level that you want to is because you are standing in your way. You're not choosing to live by what the word truly tells you about yourself and follow what God says. You keep combining what the word says with what the world says. You cannot do that. Either you live for God or you live for the world. Otherwise, you're serving 2 masters, and you can't do that. You will love one and hate the other. Anytime you do what the world says, your hatred goes to God. Anytime you do what God says, your hatred goes toward the world. But hating people, understand this, hating people whom God loves puts you on the wrong side of God every time. It's not about hating people. I don't have to like what people do. But if something happens to them, I still got to stand up and I got to go fight for him. Even if I don't like him, even if I want nothing to do with him, I've got to stand and walk that path. You've got to stand and walk that path. You can be as angry as you want to be at your wife, but you got to stand up and you got to do what is right, because God then shines down on you, not the person who it reaps hot coals on the person you're going to's head, but it allows God to shine on you. Let's go to number 4. Everything you build is about making sure that your children and your grandchildren are taken care of. And now it's time for you to start sitting down and thinking, how do I want my family to live? How do I want them to be a success? Do I want it to be through businesses that they may or may not want to run? How do I want to make sure they are provided for generations to come? And that each generation has the ability to build on top of what has already been started. Your kids may have different desires. So let me tell you about a client. His son is into the film industry. And instead of sitting back and telling his son that he can't be successful with that, he said, okay, let's see how we can merge this into what the family is already doing. And then he set him up and started driving him through how to develop in film, how to make movies, how to be directors, bringing that part of his vision into the kingdom. And by doing that, he expands his kingdom and builds his wealth. We often think that our kids come along and they're supposed to take over the family business, but that's an erroneous thought process. The Lord didn't say that. You can have one business, tear down that business, and still have a source of income. Sell that business. You know what I mean? When I say tear down, I don't mean destroy. I mean, sell it off, be rid of it. You can hire somebody else to come in and manage it and take it to levels that you hadn't thought of. You have all sorts of options. But to require your children to take place in a business that they're not interested in, that's criminal in God's eyes. He's never asked us to do that. And so that's where we get into that religious stuff, and we start getting into the oppression that people have tried to put with God on a consistent basis. God is not about oppression. He's about freedom and experience. We're all different. We're wired differently. Remember, what kingdom you're building, how it starts in your lifetime, what you see in your head, that will set the foundation. But then your sons are going to come along, your daughters are going to come along, and they're going to have ideas. Allow room for those ideas to grow on top of what you're already doing. It will help each generation be more and more successful than the first. And you start running out of ways that your generations are going to destroy your wealth, because now they have an investment, and that investment is a part of what they love to do. Are you with me? Let's go to number 5. We already know we're supposed to populate the earth. I don't really need to explain that to you. Go have fun hanging from the chandeliers. That's what it means. So, finally, let's talk about marriage and what it requires. The first thing, I know we said it before, and I know technically I shouldn't have to drive this point home again. Do not marry a woman that you have to lie to, because your marriage will never, ever be real. Understand this. When you build a marriage, a relationship on sand, there's no way to go back and turn that relationship into concrete. You would think because sand is a component of concrete that you could. No. Once it begins on a lie, it's sand. It can't stand. The foundation can't stand. It can't be built, because that lie is like water. And so underneath the concrete foundation you think you're building becomes this big, huge puddle of mud and quicksand, and it just swallows it up. Anytime you build something on a lie, it's built on sand. And too many of you are out there building your relationships on sand. Stop that. Stop hurting yourself that way and stop causing yourself so much loss and destruction because you're unwilling to tell people the truth. If we just tell the truth, it makes life easier. Number 2, the past is already gone. There's nothing you can do to change it. The only thing you can change is the future. Always be looking forward to the future. And it's funny because, my beloved Myron Golden says there's really no such thing as the present in time, because once it's the moment is happening. So the moment you're listening to this is the present, but everything I just said is now the past. And so you either are in the future or you're in the past, but you're very rarely in the present. And so I really want to explain that to you, because of course the world teaches you should live in the moment. Okay. Experience moments for what they are. There are moments you have to do things that you absolutely hate doing. If you just sit down and knock those things out, that moment comes and goes. It's gone completely, and you don't have to worry about it anymore. And it's done, and you never think about it again. But if you keep holding on to how much you don't want to do it, it begins to corrupt your future, because now you're dragging this project out forever that you already didn't want to do. Are you with me? So look forward to the future. Always be building toward where you want to go, where you want to see your relationship, the type of conversations that you want to have, the things that you want to share and experience. Bring your wife into it. Don't plan it without her. This needs to be a joint venture. If you're a loner, then you need to be without a wife, because you can't be both. And if you understand that, it will change everything that you do and how you react with people in the given moment. If you're focused all the time on the past, he who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is not fit for the kingdom of heaven. Quit putting your hand on that plow and looking backward. There ain't nothing back there, nothing worth seeing, nothing worth having that you didn't bring with you to the future. Next. Both of you have to come to a place of resolution. Pretending that somebody saying something is carte blanche for you to shut them down and not let them finish is nothing more than you being a coward. Why would you want to show yourself that way? Mutual resolution has to come. You both have to get something out of it. But in order for that to happen, you have to be concerned with her, and she has to be concerned with you. And if the two of you are concerned about each other, this is where you stand. You're separated. You're not ever going to come to a resolution. And that's one of the things that has destroyed your marriage to date, or caused you to build a marriage that's on sand. If you are not worried about her and she's not worried about you, it can't work. It's only when this happens that all of a sudden you guys can come together and you have this unit, because she's like, okay, this is what he wants to do. He's like, okay, this is what she wants to do. And then the two of you start coming up with similar ideas. That's how you find people who can finish each other's sentences. They listen and they think about the other before they think about themselves. If you're not allowing that to happen in your marriage, you're suffocating yourself and everyone in it. Lastly, I want to leave you with this verse. It's 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 7. Every time you disrespect your wife, God stops listening to your prayers. He ain't trying to hear you until you go and fix that. You stand in your own way. When he says she's the weaker vessel, he's not talking about she has the capability of handling less than what you can handle. What he's talking about is that if you will allow her to be the butterfly that she is, to be the thing that flits from point A to point B and pollinates everything, you will have an amazing life. Her being the weaker vessel means that she gets hurt easier than you do. Gentlemen, you don't often get hurt by a stranger. You will look at that stranger and say he's a jerk. But something he or that stranger might say to your wife might strike a chord of something she's already dealing with. And it causes a scar, a wound that has to heal. Physiologically, you already know she's not built the same way that you are. Doesn't mean she can't lift heavy stuff. She can, barring any unforeseen events or problems, any health issues. She can do those things. But she's not designed to do it day in and day out. Love your wife. Know her, who she is, what she's about, and then learn to respect that about her. That's how you show her honor. Paying attention and surprising her when you really don't feel like doing it, those are the things that honor her. Just remember that. It's been a pleasure seeing you guys today. You know how this goes. Ring the like bell, or no, not the like bell. Hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell. I'll see you next week.